So let's just start with this Prime Minister hypocrisy story. Michael Baker, of course, Michael Baker is someone who is an epidemiologist who's sort of been at the forefront of what we should be doing with COVID for the last 2 years, being one of the public faces of it. And then we have a government who just last week, now I believe the word begging was used by one of the politicians. They are begging New Zealanders to wear masks indoors. Other epidemiologists are saying things like we should just get used to always wearing masks indoors if we're not around family members. In other words, if you're not with your whānau, if you're not with your flatmates, if you're not with people you live with, you're in a mall, you're in a restaurant, you're somewhere else, then the standard practice should just be wearing masks. The government refuses to mandate it because that would be a bad political look, but they are pleading and begging, which I do believe were two words that were used in that story last week, pleading and begging. I'm happy to be corrected on that. But if they weren't literal words that were used, it was certainly the gist of what they were saying. They were begging the country to wear masks indoors. And then our mighty leader comes out and, in my opinion, just whips the whole legs out from that whole message and basically gives anyone who wants to go, fuck that, the opportunity to legitimately say it.
Well, one of the big messages of the past 2 weeks from epidemiologists and politicians has been to always wear your mask indoors. But it seems not everyone's listening. Political reporter Amelia Wade joins us now. And Amelia, who hasn't been following the instructions?
Yeah, not even a week after the government virtually dropped to its knees, begging Kiwis to wear their masks more. The Prime Minister has posted a picture on social media of herself, the government.
Well, as you got this photo, we'll have a look at it ourselves. But see the little green check mark there? One person with a mask on. One hero. One hero with a mask on.
General sitting MPs and 120 youth parliamentarians
he'll have a Twitter account already.
In the Beehive,
the mask
and only a single person is wearing a mask. We showed this photo to epidemiologist Michael Baker and he was shocked. He says it's leaders' responsibility to promote mask use, especially indoors, because as a nation, our mask use is slipping to the point that this very same afternoon, Speaker Trevor Mallard emailed the entire parliamentary precinct telling people to wear their masks, though he told News Hub his terse words were not connected to the Prime Minister's post. A spokesperson for the Prime Minister says that Jacinda Ardern had been wearing a mask but took it off briefly because the photographer asked.
And look, fuck that. Right, you're the leader of a country who is pleading with people to wear masks indoor, and you think taking a photo with 150 people because a photographer says, would you mind taking it off? You go, oh yeah, sure, I'll take it off. I'll just go against the whole messaging of this government. What we're doing. I'll just take it off because a photographer asked. I know it's a silly thing to say, but there's that old adage of like, would you jump off a cliff if your friend told you to do it or a friend did it? I mean, if she'll do what a photographer asks her to do, what is she going to do next year when she's coming up against Christopher Luxon and he asks her to do something? Oh yeah, he asked me to do it, so I'm going to do it. It's just ridiculous.
But this is not a good look because COVID-19 is killing Kiwis every day. It's crippling our businesses and overwhelming our hospitals. Our leaders should be leading from the front and using every photo op to normalise our most effective defence, masks.
So let's just get straight to some of the comments that are coming in because we'll address them. Now, look, let me just say, if you're watching us on Facebook, when you mention a comment, it doesn't give us your name in our system. I know it'll say your name on Facebook, but in our system it doesn't. So I have to put it up and it comes up just like this for us. So we don't know who has put this in, but someone on Facebook, probably watching us on the Dunedin News website, I would think, or Facebook page, I would think, it says because it's bullshit and she knows it. I disagree with that. It's not bullshit because that's what the message is from epidemiologists the world over. And I think, once again, maybe it's looking for political points. Jay says, Luxon's been maskless all over New Zealand and all around the world. There's been zero outrage. Yeah, you're right, Jay. And the reason there's been zero outrage is he's not the one on his knees begging the country to wear masks, right? When someone goes, and I'm not saying actually the Prime Minister has literally said this, but the Labour government has literally said that we please, even in schools, wherever you are, if you're inside, wear a mask. That's Labour. That's not national. So yeah, that of course no one's showing outrage around Luxon because he's not the one driving. We should all be wearing masks inside. Jay goes on to say Ardern had been wearing a mask the rest of the day, but took it off briefly for a photo at the request of the photographer. And Kim has the perfect response here, George, which I'm sure you'll know from Anna Brooks, where Kim says, a magic air. Now, if you're just joining us, you're not sure what magic air is. We have Anna Brooks on fairly regularly to talk to us about what's happening in long COVID and COVID. Magic air is the theory of, you walk into a restaurant wearing a mask and then you take your mask off because apparently all around you is magic air, where you can have your mask off and you've got magic air around you because the COVID won't come across from the person sitting opposite you or from the table next to you. You've got magic air around you. So obviously it's being fairly facetious to say it that way. But Kim, it's the perfect point. So let's just have a look at the photo. I mean, we've just seen it, but I've got a bigger version of it. So this is the photo, and here is the Prime Minister. I wonder if can I zoom in on this? Control, zoom in. Oh, there we go. There's the PM just there, maskless. And look, I don't know if I even buy that she took it off for a second, because I guess in theory it's a 50-50 chance. But there's no mask in that hand. So, there could be a mask in the other hand while she takes it off. But either way, I think the reporter made a very fair point that if this government, if this Labour Party is on bended knee saying, please wear masks, then you should be using opportunities like this with a huge number of young people to model it's okay to wear a mask in a photo. For some reason, the Prime Minister has decided to put herself under the photographer and go, oh yeah, okay, I'll take my mask off. There'll be some bullshit coming out tomorrow about how I held my breath. You heard it here first. You wait till you hear her say, and I held my breath. It's like, well, actually, the point of you asking us to wear masks, you as in your government, and then you not modeling that is actually just as bad. It's terrible. I mean, those of you again who have watched this, I've been ardent about this. Please wear your mask, do this, this is best defense for you and for the people around you, sort of thing. And look, she's just given ammunition to every critic of that idea in the world, as you've already heard through Facebook. And it's utterly ridiculous. She's utterly ridiculous. And it's an utter failure of a decision-making process. I think I've finished my rant. George, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'm not as fussed. It was awesome to see that guy that kept his mask on, because I imagine I buy the sort of taking it off briefly for the for the photo. I imagine this happens quite a bit. Maybe if they're outside, it would have been good. But yeah, I guess the point is basically that it's the youth parliament that I'm sure probably to a man or to a person probably. Pretty serious about mask use, and it's a prime minister that's supposedly pretty serious about mask use. I guess that's the real kicker, right? Is that they're not showing that with their actions. Right, they're not replicating that with their actions.
I get it. The risk factor goes up when you do things like when you're in a room with someone for 15 minutes. It could literally be 30 seconds. But I'm just going to go back again to the reporter who said the modelling, and I think that's an incredibly valid criticism. That now anybody walks into a store, they'll just go, oh, "Fucking Prime Minister doesn't wear a mask when they're inside. Here's the evidence." I mean, we talked about. Yesterday when Christopher Luxon had to explain what he meant, when he said, well, what I meant by that comment is, and I was like, you've lost the narrative. If you have to explain your commentary, you've lost the narrative. And like, if you have a photo going out that's completely contrary to your narrative, i.e. wear masks inside, then again, you've lost your narrative. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, if I was her advisors and if she'd made this decision, I would be ropeable, because it could have literally put what they're trying to do back a long way. This one photo, that's the kind of weight that some people will put in it. And I guess I'm putting a lot of weight in it because I'm not for her not using the opportunity to normalize wearing a mask in a group photo. The other thing is, and I know because, as I just said, your risks go up like when you've been there for longer. If it's just 30 seconds and off, there's probably a very low chance that she'll catch anything. But imagine if in 5 days she tests positive. I mean, it'll be a terrible look for politically as well as personally and health-wise. But it's just, yeah, I just think that's such a poor decision. And the only correct response here, and we've done this before when we were talking about Christopher Luxon and, you know, racist comments on his Facebook page by other people, right? We gave the only correct response. The only correct response here is for her to make culpa, and actually, absolutely, what is apologize. Sorry, I was reading a comment at the same time. Is apologize for making a grievous error, and we won't see it again. That's really the only way out of this in any way, shape whatsoever. David saying, check your BHN Twitter announcement for reply showing PM in Parliament not wearing masks. Someone replied to me on Twitter. I'll have a look, shall I? I'll have a look then. There's a reply from someone apparently. Sorry, this is good radio, isn't it?
So she's standing up giving an address to the Parliament. So she's taken her mask off up at the sort of that lower part of Parliament, in front of where the speaker sits.
Yeah, but I mean, look, so the thing about masks, right, is all of us have increased our risk. Yeah. You know, people going back to the gym who weren't going to the gym when there was more of a lockdown. You know, people are doing more things out and about. You know, people are making speeches and taking their mask off when they're making a speech, but not when they're in the audience. I mean, that's reasonable in this current age of actually us increasing risk factor. But that photo op with 150 people, I mean, that could literally could literally be a super spreader event. Not saying it's going to be, not saying it is, but it could. If, you know, 10% of all those people end up having COVID in a few days' time. It's bad optics, and bad optics is not smart in politics.
But I guess practically, materially, in terms of the COVID, considering that they're youth parliamentarians and they're from every corner of the country, as well. What you say about the spreader event makes it, and
look, I'm not trying to be a drama queen. I know, you know, short time frame, only off for 30 seconds. If that is all true, you know, these people are together. Maybe all of them took their masks off for 30 seconds for the photo and then all put them back on. I don't know, but you know, politics is so much
what happened.
But politics is so much about optics. Like, it's so much about what you can look, and it's so much about what your opposition, be you the opposition and government, or be you the government and the opposition, what your opposition can then do with those optics. And she's just given the opposition from her. She served it up on a plate. See, the Prime Minister doesn't think this is serious. You know, she's potentially in a super spreader event. She just doesn't wear a mask. She doesn't care, like that Facebook user said, because it's bullshit and she knows it. I don't believe that, but that's a perfectly fair conclusion to be pulled from this photo, and people will. So her optics are terrible, and it's going to possibly damage them politically and potentially damage the thing they're trying to achieve in the health system as well, potentially. I know that sounds big and like it's the worst thing in the world, but maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic, but it's still not necessarily incorrect. Hey, I did want to just share one other thing to do with the I did just want to share one other thing as well to do with Jacinda Ardern, because this tweet came through whilst I was doing it, bringing attention to a couple of things. The first one is, it seems that, not being able to click on it. Anyway, that's from Facebook. It seems that there are other images where all of the youth are masked. Maybe they've taken them off for this as well. But one of the things that I found particularly interesting and particularly damning is, for example, Helen Clark. Indeed, shocking to see that the unmasked youth in Parliament. What on earth? I didn't mean to click on it. What on earth are they thinking? New Zealand is in the middle of a pandemic surge. So Helen Clark, I mean, you can't get much more kind of in politics, at least left, than Helen Clark, the 9-year Prime Minister of the Labour Party in the first decade of this century, saying what the fuck in her own words. Winston Peters, define hypocrisy. The PM and a number of MPs who like to lecture Kiwis on wearing masks, then walk out the door, and this is what they do because it suits them. And this is what I'm saying about, it's about optics. That's completely fair for Winston Peters to say that. And the Prime Minister has just given Winston Peters the ammunition to actually say that. And I think even David Seymour, what he had to say. It sounds like the Prime Minister may have got confused. She may have thought that she was still overseas, David Seymour told Newshub. She has asked New Zealanders to follow the rules at great cost. The least she could do is follow Parliament rules herself. So that's interesting as well, because when you're in Parliament, you're supposed to have a mask on. So that's actually a rule in Parliament, as well as what they're begging for us to do. Former Prime Minister Helen Clark said it was shocking to see all the unmasked people. And look, all those criticisms are fair. And I'll say again, even if it was 10 seconds, even if she held her breath, whatever, the optics that she's given and the fodder that she's given to the opposition and to anyone who wants to criticize her are now completely valid. And it's just taken the legs out from underneath what the Labour government has told us they're trying to achieve.